Hi everybody, how are you doing? It's Kim Marshall, and if it's Tuesday and 12:30 in LA, it must be time for another Global Wellness Summit Leader Livecast on Instagram. We have a wonderful guest today, and we are going to ask her to join us, Jackie Gifford from Travel and Leisure Magazine, the editor-in-chief. So let's just see if, okay, here we go. Good luck with that. I think it's working. I'll just have to brag about her right to her face when she connects. Because Travel and Leisure. Hey, how are you?
Hi, I am so good. How are you, Kim?
We did it. We had a
We
few
did it.
last week was a week of glitches. Every time we tried to connect, we couldn't do it. So you made me so happy, Miss Jacqueline.
Well, you know what? I've had to adapt like we all have to this new world of technology and learning and just embracing weird tech hiccups because I feel like every time I have a meeting, my son comes in and asks if he can help me if I can go help him go to the bathroom or get him food. So, while I'm talking to my boss, so guess what? This is reality.
We do it.
We do it.
I have done these now, I think over 20. So I put a sign on my front door, don't knock or ring the bell because the dogs go crazy.
Oh, I
It's
know.
also nuts. But I want to brag to everybody about who you are if they're just tuning in. Number one, excuse me, Travel and Leisure Magazine is an icon in the industry. In fact, I found out that in 1937 it launched and it was called U.S. Camera and Travel. Is that right?
That is correct.
And then in 71, it was changed to Travel and Leisure because they wanted to do more on general travel, not just photos, right?
Yep. Yep, that's it. So next year is our 50th anniversary.
Oh, come on. Okay.
Yeah.
And you also have 4 international editions: China,
Hmm.
India, Mexico, and Southeast Asia,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, that's correct.
But the biggest braggy brag of all, Darlene Fisk, my partner in crime, sent to me yesterday, is that audited media report says that June, your average monthly audience was up 19% compared to 2019, and year to date is up 12%. How
That's
do
true.
you how do you
That's
define
true.
that? How did that happen, Miss Jackie?
I think that was just a really good example of teamwork. We got those numbers yesterday, and I was just over the moon because it shows that my team is fantastic. Our brand is stronger than ever, and I should add that includes the print product, which also has our digital editions. We launched this amazing new service with Apple. If anybody who's watching today, if you want to subscribe to Apple News Plus, I'm going to give my shameless plug. It's actually
No.
pretty fantastic for $9.99 a month. You get access to all the premium magazines here in the United States, and Travel and Leisure is one of them. What we do, it's the full magazine reading experience that you would get if you had the print product, which, by the way, you can subscribe to that too. But if you want to subscribe to Apple News Plus, you end up basically you can read it on your phone, a tablet, and we do all these amazing enhanced animated covers, animated features that one of our in-house designers works on. So it's actually a really fun reading experience that we're really proud of. So, and that I think speaks to the fact that the brand is just evolving and changing every year.
It really is. I am telling you what, I put some questions down for you, but I didn't even know I subscribed to that Apple Plus thing. And I was reading
Yeah,
the Sunday New York Times on my phone and then Apple News. And I was like, wait. And I said, too bad I didn't buy it. It was Vanity Fair or something where you used to work. And I
yeah,
was like, oh, too bad. And then I tapped on it and it was the whole issue. What are we
yeah,
talking about? So
yeah,
everybody double check. Now,
yeah.
before we go one step further, though, I don't want people to think that a 12-year-old is running such an empire. So I have to talk a little bit about your background,
But a
Miss
12-year-old,
Jacqueline.
I like it. Why? Because I look young? Is that you're trying to
Yes.
be nice to me? I'm like, do you see the grays in my hair, Kim? So I just
Well,
dyed my hair.
thanks for making me feel better. But
Yeah,
let's say you went to Princeton and majored in English, doody
it's
do,
true.
and then you worked at Vanity Fair as an editorial
It's true.
assistant, and then the famous place where I met you, OK Magazine.
The
You
best.
And remember, we took one of your quite fluffy and fancy editors to
Oh,
Tahiti, and
oh my
she
God.
dropped her $300 pair of glasses in the Blue Lagoon, never to be seen again.
Never to know. I'm sure never to be seen again. Oh
But
my
that was fun.
God.
And then what was your role at Brides, my friend?
I was a travel editor there. So Brides was a Condé Nast publication, and since it was just recently sold, but that was actually a brand that had had a long history of giving women the weddings of their dreams, the honeymoons of their dreams, and so I did all of our destination wedding and honeymoon coverage
Oh
for
my
the
God.
brand. Yeah,
So
which
then,
was fun.
no, that has to be because who doesn't go on a honeymoon?
Yeah,
except for now. But anyway, and then you came to the famous Travel and Leisure, and it's
that's right.
just been going, going, going. So let's just ask one of the questions of the purpose of our Leader Livecast is, I'm Swell Public Relations co-founded with your friend and mine, Darlene Fisk, and we went to the Global Wellness Summit and said, hey, come on, let's keep people going. Everyone's going to pivot. Everyone's going to have a story if they're kicking. So we want to inspire people. How has wonderful, iconic Travel and Leisure pivoted during COVID and the shutdown?
So what we've done, we moved, well, just so everybody knows who's watching, we moved everybody to work from home in the middle of March in New York City. That's where we're mainly based. We have a few staffers around the country and other locations, but mostly in New York. And we didn't really know what the world was going to look like, as nobody did back then.
Yeah.
So we decided to keep publishing the magazine, which was a big decision, frankly, because a lot of our competitors sadly didn't publish editions during those initial months. But we moved forward, and we sort of looked. I felt that honestly, with so much uncertainty, and people who read Travel and Leisure just love the spirit of travel. So we went out with our June issue, saying, honoring the power of travel and human connection. And this beautiful picture of a sunset, and said New Horizons, and it went along with the story about Puerto Rico, which is a destination that, as we all know, has been through several challenges: the recent earthquake, the hurricanes the previous 2 years. So I think it was a story about rebirth and reinvention. So it kind of spoke to the human spirit and how we're all very resilient in the face of really, really challenging times. So overall, the issue actually covered a broad range of places. We had some great service pieces that spoke to the world that we were living in. One about, how you could see a museum in your home from wherever you are. And I think, look, at the end of the day, people, they understood that we're publishing a magazine, not knowing once we hit send what's going to happen. So they're quite forgiving. Our readers just wanted to be excited to read about travel. And the other great thing about the world we're living in is, our digital universe and sphere is where we can really update people every second with what's happening. So our digital team and the print team really collaborated on everything from what was happening with airline policies and refunds, the cruise industry, which had been going through a lot of disruption in that time, how this whole world of virtual travel, which was really spearheaded by one of our staffers who was kind of on that movement from the beginning, and then keeping people just inspired with beautiful pictures. We launched this digital series on Instagram called View from a Window, where people could share their views and pictures, the travel pictures and travel memories. So we just kind of kept the being positive as we possibly could, and trying to inspire people, because the reality is, this will end, and people will travel. And some people, frankly, are traveling now. Let's be honest. I hope they're doing it safely with a mask and responsibly. But some, that people are traveling now, and they will travel again. And it might not look the same as it did before. But I like to remind myself that after 9/11, we had a complete shift in how we traveled, particularly when it came to airport security, airlines, how you couldn't board a plane with a pair of tweezers anymore. I remember the days when, my mom would meet me at the gate. There was no security, and then things changed and we got used to them. So we have to kind of look to history and remind ourselves that there will be a new normal that comes out of this, and we'll get used to it. We're just not sure what it's going to look like yet.
Well, you just did, was it last weekend? You went to upstate New York, right?
I did. It was actually God, this is the other part of this is I have lost all sense of time. It was at the very end, because it's now mid-August. I can't believe that. It was at the very end of July. We went to Amagansett, which is part of Long Island. It's in the Hamptons. And we were there for 3 nights, and it was really interesting. It was my first hotel stay since February, when I was in Charleston, and it gave me hope, frankly. I think the hotel, that was called the Roundtree, they did a great job. Small. Everybody wore masks. All the guests wore masks too. There was a lot of outdoor space so people could walk around, and they had these really crazy, funny, when you think about it, I don't know who thought of this thing. It's called a Yupang sterilizer. It looks like a mini fridge, and you stick your remote controls and your keys and all the stuff that picks up germs and, or virus. You put it in there, and kills everything. It even kills stuff on your phone. So it was, it was good. I'm really glad I did it. And look, I'm a journalist. If I'm not trying to understand this new normal myself, then I suppose I'm not really doing my job.
You can't really report on it. I
Yeah.
have to take a road trip starting Sunday up to Big Sur, which I see you posted about. Oh, and I'm a little
Yay.
nervous, and we're looking out ahead of time. I tell my colleagues, don't you think hotels care? They are into this. If they're going to be open, they're going to be clean. They're committed to it.
Oh yeah, I think they are. I think they do care. I mean, look, I think there's nobody's opening in doing things, at least from what I've seen. I don't think they're doing things purposely in like a slapdash way. They
No.
really want to make people feel safe. And the only challenge right now is that every state has different regulations and rules. And like, for example, here in New York, if you go to a state that is on the current list, I think it's 10 cases per every 100,000 people, and I think that's right. Somebody can fact check me on that
Yeah.
one. If a state hits that, it goes above that threshold, then it goes on the list, and then when you come back, you have to self quarantine. The problem is that those states change by the minute, and like Alaska was on the list before for New York, now it's off. So say you plan a trip to Alaska, get all excited about it, go there, then it goes on the list, and then you come back, you have to quarantine. It creates confusion for people. But I think, that at the same time, people some people are willing to take that risk because they just want to go somewhere new.
Yeah, and I will tell you, having a resource that's on the minute, like I was looking online at all the things you're offering right now, even, patio essentials, what to pack, museums that will open. These are the states that you do have to quarantine when arrive from, blah, blah. These
Yeah.
are important factoids that you're equipped to go forth with. We
Yeah.
have a client, it's called the Springs in Pagosa Hot Springs in Colorado. Believe it or not, Colorado is pretty wide open.
I Colorado, knock on wood, seems to be doing fine. I know their case numbers did go up a little bit, but they haven't hit that threshold yet. So let's pray that they don't.
Yeah, and the environmental side is also there. It's such a natural place, and I was so happy to hear they're cleaning with UV light and things that don't hurt the earth, because we got to think of that too. All right, I want to know how you, as the decision maker, how do you divvy up the pie? You have so many platforms, Jack. I think you should explain to people. It's the print, it's the online, it's Instagram, it's Facebook, it's Instagram Live, it's Facebook. How do you do it? How do you
How do you
decide?
divvy it up? I think you have to. Well, first of all, there's some stories that just won't hold for print, or it doesn't make sense to run them because the situation is ever evolving and changing. So, for example, to your point earlier about state guidelines, I don't know if it makes sense, and I kind of realized this early on. It doesn't really make sense for us to publish something in the magazine about state guidelines, because guess what? They're going to change.
Yeah.
So I think the beauty of print is you have to keep people dreaming, and so you want to populate it with evergreen content, some seasonal content. So we're actually running some fall stories, which we shoot our fall and winter stories almost a year in advance, pretty much a year in advance. So we shot a story in the Berkshires last fall, and we're going to run it this year, and we're just updating it with relevant information so people know what's happening. But most of the things that we reported on last year are actually now open. So I think you have to decide where the story is going to have the most impact, and that kind of helps inform what we do. And like for example, we just launched a podcast which has done incredibly well, called Let's
I
Go
know.
Together, which is
Do this and pat yourself. It is so unique.
yay.
That podcast, amazing.
Yeah, so we had been kicking around this idea for quite some time, but we got the green light to launch the podcast in the wintertime, and then move forward with it. And graciously, Kelly Edwards, the host, recorded the series in her home because she was on lockdown in LA, and all the participants were on lockdown wherever they were in the world. They recorded them from their homes. And I think the interesting thing about it was, the theme is about diversity and inclusion. It's called Let's Go Together. And we felt like it was a topic that was really relevant to the times. And then lo and behold, it launches in mid-June when our country is going through, a serious discussion about about inclusion, and it felt like it was the right. It didn't. I mean, I hate to say that we didn't plan for it to be launch around that time and in the middle of everything, but it did, and we felt like it was important to move forward with it. And I think the podcast has been really well received. So we have 12 episodes. It's still live right now. We're launching a new episode tomorrow.
Yeah, you have paraplegic person in a wheelchair in Machu Picchu. You have so many encouraging stories. How did you find Kelly Edwards? Who is she?
So Kelly Edwards is somebody I met several years ago at an event. It's very random why we met, but we did. It was a very strange event. Not strange, but just like an interesting meeting. And then we stayed in touch, and she actually was on our cover in January as part of a sponsored ad with Ford, which was really exciting. It was a program called the New Power Suit. It was about celebrating sort of the how women are taking on untraditional roles, and she was posing in front of her plane, or a plane, because she's a pilot, and then the conversation kind of developed from there, and then when we got the green light for the pilot, it made sense for her to be the host.
I'm a little jealous. I mean, we're so happy with our podcast, and it launches the new episode next week, GWS, but yours is kicking me because it was serendipity that you had that foresight, and then the timing was perfect.
The timing is great. Yep.
So tell me the difference between your Facebook and your Instagram audience for travel and leisure. Do you know? Do you guys talk about
Facebook audience and the Instagram audience? I mean, there's not, I think the interesting thing is, obviously our digital audience skews a little bit younger than our print audience, but not by much, actually. I think the people that go, our real social footprint at this point is Instagram. We do have a Facebook audience, but I would say we put the bulk of our efforts behind Instagram. That's where we get the most engagement. Our Instagram following is, it's over 5 million at this point. We're one of the largest travel brands out there. So I think we've seen, because travel is such a visual medium, and Instagram has adapted with the times. Here we are doing an Instagram Live. We did our Instagram Live to launch World's Best on July 8th. We did I was the host, and we invited some of our winners on to talk just like you and I are. And then, with stories, we're able to promote all of our digital, flat content through stories too, and just work with different collaborators and influencers so they can share their travels. So I think, for the most part, I mean, Facebook and Instagram are the same company. If anybody, I hope everybody on here knows that. But I think, for us, I think Instagram is really where there's been just a tremendous growth. And there's still a lot of potential now that they have their new Reels, which I've yet to try. But who knows? How do you keep up?
I mean, honestly and truly, we're your World's Best Awards. You know this. I mean, resorts and hotels just die. They're like, oh, we got this. And Darlene and I just found out we won a PR News 100 Agency Elite Award. We're so excited. We got 2 girls, 2 years, 1 dream. But we're like, how do we tell the world? We have so many platforms to do it, right? Because everybody has to tell their story. So congrats for really doing it so well. I love your swipe ups. I'm just saying. And also, I do notice, like the last post, you talked about driving to national parks. You said, they're often remote, so gas up, check the spare tire, load up on maps, and read this before hitting the road. I mean, that's about as honest as you can be. Honest, truthful, helpful, right?
Sorry, technical glitch, but we fixed it.
Hey, they happen all the time. I also think it's funny that you go off just travel. Like you said, I think there's a link to what medical professionals think of the risk of eating out, right?
Yeah, we've been doing, our digital team and has really been doing a good amount of coverage on that. And there was a great piece that we did, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe even longer, about what the sort of risks are of staying in a hotel. And we talked to medical experts and how you can mitigate some of that risk. whether it was not asking housekeeping to come into your room or keeping your windows open, asking for somebody to, or asking the hotel to have the room vacant for the past 72 hours, all sorts of things like that. So we're trying to educate people as much as we can about the science behind the virus. But, I have to be honest, we're not scientists. We're not strictly science journalists in the sense that that some outlets are. And let's be honest, also the science behind this keeps changing and it's really hard to predict. So we're doing the best we can to make sure that people know what's happening, but it's hard.
Yeah, it's really, it's a group effort. Now, one thing I wanted to bring up, we only have 10 more minutes of your wonderful time, valuable time, Jackie, but, people don't stop and think. I've been in boardrooms so many times with marketing execs, and they're like, okay, where should we divvy up our money? And yet they want the awards from magazines like you and Condé Nast Traveler. You must remember that, there's no crossing between church and state, but you have to have advertising to keep going. So even if...
Yeah, that's true. That's
right?
true. Sure.
Even if you're part of a group like a tourism board or a convention and visitors bureau, all pull together, keep these outlets going, because clearly with the increase in readership, people are showing that they need them, right?
Yeah, I mean, God bless you for saying that. Yes, that's a lovely, lovely thought. But yes, I mean, our business is supported primarily by, advertising. Obviously, we have paying subscribers, which is wonderful, and we have other ways of making money. But advertising is a big part of our business, and I think, I would, the world's best awards though are very much, advertising doesn't influence who wins, because a lot of times if you look and see who wins, they're not our clients. There are a lot of times really small properties that don't necessarily even have huge budgets to spend money. But I think, I think it's, it's an interesting, you pose an interesting thing where we're all as media brands trying to keep going, and it's a challenging business environment. But I think the fact that we've had that tremendous growth, which AAM, monitored, they're an outside, vendor as well. It's not us reporting on our own numbers. So there's something in the sauce, right? We're all doing some great work.
Now tell me, I don't think people realize how much thought goes in each section of a magazine. Tell me the difference in your sections. Just briefly, if you could.
Yeah, I think she was on earlier, Siobhan Reed, the lovely Siobhan Reed. She's our associate editor who edits Discovery. So that's the traditional, I would say, like sort of front of book, taste of the world section where you get snapshots of what's happening. Siobhan does a great job. She took over editing the section from Lila, who's now moved on and started editing Experiences with Sarah Bruning. So Experiences is the middle of the book where it's, first person experiential storytelling, short pieces about, it could be a personal essay memory type piece. It could be a straight like long weekend kind of a story where the reader is going to get a lot of service out of it. We have Intelligent Traveler, which is edited by Paul Brady. He's got deep experience in consumer news, so he works on that section. And I would say that is the place right now in the book that has the most I would say COVID edit, but sort of strategies for dealing with COVID, because it's where we traditionally put a lot of news and info. But that's not to say we don't talk about it elsewhere. I mean, Siobhan did a great piece in our September food issue with Rocky Barnett and Virginia Lieberman, who owned the Capri and Marfa. They had a new cookbook coming out, and we did a profile of them, talked to them about the cookbook, and they were on lockdown. And so, it's not like we're not acknowledging that it's going on in other areas. And then we have our features, which are, sort of the bigger, longer stories in the book, all photo, beautiful photo portfolios to go along with it. We still work with some of the best award-winning photographers in the business, and that's kind of it. I would say we've done more fashion in recent years, trying to bring like the lifestyle back, to show people that how fashion and travel intersect, and continue to work with new contributors and collaborators and look for new voices all the time.
Yeah, well, that's so cool. And then also, Darlene said one of her favorite things is your letters from the editor.
Great.
Yeah. How do you decide?
Thank you.
Month? Yeah.
I wish I could say there was some master strategy behind it, but there really isn't, or grand strategy. I just kind of write them fairly close to the end of the production cycle. And, because it takes me a while to sort of absorb and feel each piece. Like you want to read it several times to get a spirit of the issue. And I mean, obviously you have an idea of what's happening in the issue, and you know what you want to, a loose idea of what you want to say, but I like to read through each story and then sort of take stuff that's happening in my own life and throw it in there, and then give like a, you know, a general overview of hopefully what's to come. So it's fun. I thank you, Darlene, for saying they're so honest and real. I wish I could be. If I was, you know, I probably should say that I spend hours agonizing over them, but I actually don't. I usually write them in like 20 minutes.
I don't know how you'd have
But
time with all these
no,
sections.
well, it's mostly like I don't really want to overthink it because it's not really meant to be a sort of grand missive. It's just sort of a snapshot of life at that moment.
Well, you know, we really want to get from you some COVID tips. And I really brought up that part about the sections so you wouldn't have to be bored with the question about how do you do a pitch. So all you PR people listening, just look at the magazine.
Yeah.
And tailor your pitch to the section,
and we have the editors' names underneath each section too, because that was by design so that there would be helpful hints on how to reach people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, because that's a question we always get. Okay, so what do you think the rest of us out here can learn from Travel and Leisure's experience during COVID? What can we take away from what you and your team did?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. What I would say is don't radically reinvent the wheel. And I know that sounds crazy to say because we are all doing different things, but I think as a brand, you know, we had a very clear decision to make when we started to work from home and think about what people were going to feel, and everyone's feeling a wide range of emotions. But like at the end of the day, we're a travel brand that our audience comes to us because they love to travel. So all of a sudden pivoting TNL to be a magazine that was all about the coronavirus and news and what was happening in the world of travel with the virus, and sort of making it feel frankly very sad, to me felt wrong, because that's not why people were coming to us. They're coming to us for hopeful news and a hopeful spirit. Right. So I would say, like, when you talk to your clients or when you talk to other people in the industry, I mean, yeah, we're all facing challenges, and you have to have a certain amount of things you have to adapt. You can't stick your head and bury your head in the sand. But what's the purpose of the brand to begin with? I think that's the real fundamental question you want to ask yourself. And I don't think you want to stray that far away from it. Because then you're going to lose the people that loved you to begin with. So
I couldn't agree more. And then when you think about, this Instagram Live, we've interviewed the head of Forbes Travel Guide. We've interviewed the VP of Virtuoso. There are so many travelers out there whose hearts are kind of broken. But tell me what gives you hope for the industry from all the things that you know. Tell me.
Yeah, well, okay, so I'm going to give people a great book to read if they want to sort of get into the geek out on the history of some of this stuff. Please read The Great Mortality by John Kelly. It's about the plague, not the Justinian plague, but the plague of the Middle Ages, the one that broke out in the 1350s, spread from the Caspian Sea. The Genoese brought it on merchant ships they believe, first into Sicily, and then it spread up from there. So it's a fascinating book because it basically breaks down how a virus spreads and what usually happens. And you sort of realize that the human psychology side of this, it's kind of the same. Things don't really change. Yeah. And eventually what happens is it ends. It ends. Yeah. It'll end. And so it's just a matter of when. And yes, there's definitely, I don't want to downplay economic, psychological ramifications, the sort of behavioral changes that come out of it, but there actually will be an end. So I think when I think of travel, it's not like we're never going to travel again. It just might not be exactly what it was before. It might look a little different, feel a little different. Instead of being on a plane 10 times a year, you might only fly twice for the foreseeable future. And then maybe in 10 years from now, all bets are off. You just don't know, but there actually is an endpoint. And usually, I know there's a great sort of urban thing, like cities are collapsing. Who's ever going to live in New York? And it's like,
are you kidding?
Well, I think the funny thing is, it's like, you know, you think of places like London and Paris and Rome and New York and Tokyo, and you know, they're not, it's like they're still here. They've also been through pandemics before and come
You're
out of
so
it,
right.
so they're still here. So that's the other part of it. It's like, I think there's just a lot, people just have to say stuff, and so just don't. I think you have to play the long game with
Well,
travel and in everything else.
well, I want to say hi to all the people, Sammy Guarini, Laura Mansky. There's so many people that are there. I tried to wave to everybody. But we'll end, I hate to end this conversation, but you know, we started these out at 10 minutes. They never are because there's too many juicy people. But
I know.
um, let me ask you, because this is wellness, what do you do to keep healthy and positive and joyful
Yeah. Healthy,
besides drugs
positive,
and wine?
joyful. But all of that. I think, you know, we have to try to switch off a little bit. I'm trying to read, I read that book, but I read plenty of other things that aren't about about disease and plague,
Yeah.
but, try to take pleasure in small things. It could be cooking for you. I think you can, the weather's beautiful right now in New York City, so I walked almost like 80 blocks yesterday. So, each day try and carve out a little bit of time for yourself if you can. And then, if you're also really tired, like some days I'm really tired, and so I go to bed early. I know
Is
that
it
sounds
very,
really lame, but it's like, there's an exhaustion level to this that I think people aren't really, it's going to catch up with them because everyone's working really hard to stay in touch with people and just stay afloat, literally.
uh,
So I think we can all try and sleep a little bit more, exercise a little bit more, and boost your immune system, because obviously, as we know, people who have weakened immune systems are more susceptible to the virus. So
right. So keep moving, get outside, and if we all had a little munchkin to hug like you do, young lady.
I
He's so
know, it's so cute. He's
He's
such a
so
sweetheart.
adorable. All right,
He
Miss
is.
Jackie. Well, listen, we are going to be in touch. We can't thank you enough for
Yes,
taking time. You're
this
juggling
was
so
fun.
many balls, but this has been really informative and helpful. And I can't wait to hug you on the other side when we're all there, or even an
Yay!
elbow bump. Okay?
Bye.
Bye, hon.
See ya.
Thanks a million.
Take care.